The catalyst. The galaxy was at peace, or so it seemed. For centuries, humanity had stayed on the outskirts of galactic affairs, quietly rebuilding after the wars of old. Most alien species had forgotten about Earth, dismissing it as a backwater planet of no consequence. But all that changed in an instant. A broadcast interrupted the tranquil night skies of human colonies. The Tsilnari, an advanced and cruel species known for their dominance, sent a live feed across the galaxy. The screen flickered to life, revealing the human child, no older than 7, bound and trembling in the middle of a cold, metallic room. Her cries echoed, weak but heartbreaking. "This is the fate of humanity," the Tsilnari overlord declared, his voice a cold growl. "A warning to all who dare resist the will of the Tsilnari dominion. Humans are weak. Humans are irrelevant. And humans will be eradicated." The child whimpered as a Tsilnari soldier approached her with a cruel-looking device. Across the galaxy, humans watched in horror, helpless to intervene. For years, they had avoided confrontation with the Tsilnari, knowing the power imbalance was too great. But this act of cruelty was too much. Anger spread like wildfire through human settlements. In a hidden bunker deep beneath the surface of a forgotten moon, the High Council of Earth convened in secret. The leaders, hardened by years of caution, debated their next move. Some argued for diplomacy, believing that Tsilnari could still be reasoned with. Others called for war, even knowing the odds were stacked against them. Then an older man, his face lined with years of burden, spoke up. He was General Markham, a relic of a past era when humanity had wielded power unmatched by any species. His voice was steady but filled with resolve. "They've left us no choice. It's time to awaken the Juggernauts." The room fell silent. Whispers spread among the council members, the names stirring both hope and fear. The Juggernauts were a legend, war machines from an ancient time when humanity had ruled the stars. They had been locked away, deemed too dangerous for use. But now, faced with the Tsilnari's brutality, they were humanity's only hope. "But General," a younger council member protested, "the Juggernauts are untested. We don't even know if they'll work after all this time. And even if they do, we don't fully understand their power." Markham's gaze hardened. "We don't need to understand them. We just need them to fight." Meanwhile, the broadcast continued. The Tsilnari overlord took pleasure in humanity's silence, interpreting it as fear. The child's cries grew louder as the alien soldiers taunted her. Her small, tear-streaked face filled the screen, a haunting image that burned itself into the hearts of every human watching. On a remote colony, a young engineer named Liam stood frozen, his fists clenched. Around him, the people of his settlement murmured angrily, their frustration and sorrow bubbling over. Liam's younger sister had been the same age as the child on the screen when she died in an earlier Tsilnari raid. He couldn't take it anymore. "They think we're weak," Liam muttered under his breath. "They think we'll just sit here and watch." Across the galaxy, similar feelings of rage and determination gripped humanity. Something deep within their collective spirit stirred, something ancient and unyielding. Humanity had faced extinction before, and each time they had risen stronger. This time would be no different. Back in the hidden bunker, Markham activated a holographic display, revealing a map of Earth's forgotten military vaults. One location blinked red, Vault Primus, an enormous underground facility on a desolate planet long abandoned by human life. "We need a team to go to Vault Primus and activate the Juggernauts," Markham announced. "This is humanity's last chance." Captain Aria Kane, a seasoned officer with a reputation for bold decisions, stepped forward. Her steel-gray eyes reflected both determination and doubt. "I'll lead the mission," she said, her voice steady. "But General, if these machines are as dangerous as the stories say, are we sure this is the right choice?" Markham placed a hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes, Captain, the right choice isn't the easy one. The Tsilnari must learn that humanity is not to be underestimated. As the mission was prepared in secrecy, the galaxy buzzed with rumors. Some species, long indifferent to humanity, began to take notice. Others, fearing culinary retaliation, distanced themselves further. But humanity had no time to worry about alliances. They were on the brink of war, and their survival depended on one thing: the reawakening of their forgotten power. The broadcast ended with the child's final words, spoken in a trembling but defiant voice. "You can hurt me, but you can't break us." Her words echoed in the hearts of all who heard them. Far away, on the desolate world of Vault Primus, ancient machinery stirred to life. Hidden beneath layers of dust and time, the Juggernauts awaited their call to arms. The forgotten power. Vault Primus was a relic of humanity's forgotten past, buried beneath layers of ash and time on a planet long erased from galactic maps. It was here that Captain Aria Kane and her team arrived, their dropship slicing through the choking storms of the planet's atmosphere. The terrain below was barren, a wasteland of jagged rocks and endless gray skies. As the dropship touched down, a sense of unease settled over the crew. "This place feels wrong," one of the soldiers muttered, scanning the area with his weapon. The winds howled around them, carrying whispers that seemed almost alive. Captain Aria adjusted her helmet, her voice cutting through the unease. "Focus, everyone. Vault Primus is our objective. Whatever's down there, it's our only shot." The team approached the entrance to the vault, a massive steel door half buried in the ground. Rusted panels and faded warnings in ancient human languages lined the edges. Liam, the young engineer from the colony, was part of the mission, chosen for his expertise in deciphering ancient systems. He approached the control panel with cautious excitement, his fingers brushing off centuries of dust. "This is incredible," Liam murmured. "The tech here. It's older than anything I've ever seen. It's almost as if—" "Liam," Aria interrupted, her tone firm. "Can you open it?" "Working on it," he replied, his hands moving deftly over the controls. Sparks flew as he bypassed ancient security protocols, and the ground trembled slightly. Then, with a deafening groan, the vault door began to slide open, revealing a cavernous darkness beyond. The air inside was stale and heavy, and the dim light from their helmets barely pierced the shadows. The group moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing through the vast, silent corridors. The walls were lined with symbols and engravings, some depicting human figures standing alongside enormous, machine-like constructs. Others showed scenes of destruction, battles that seemed almost mythological in scale. "This isn't just a military vault," Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's a tomb." As they ventured deeper, they came to a massive chamber. There, bathed in faint, flickering light, stood the Juggernauts. Towering machines, each the size of a small skyscraper, their armor gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. They were humanoid in shape, but far more imposing, their limbs bristling with weaponry that defied comprehension. Their eyes, dark and lifeless, seemed to stare down at the team. "By the stars," one of the soldiers breathed. "They're monsters." "No," Aria corrected, stepping forward. "They're our monsters." Liam approached the nearest Juggernaut, his tools clinking nervously as he set up his diagnostic equipment. "These things are incredible," he said, marveling at the intricate designs. "The power cores alone could fuel a city for centuries. But they're dormant. Something's keeping them offline." Aria looked up at the massive construct, her reflection barely visible in its dark metallic surface. "What will it take to wake them?" Before Liam could answer, the chamber lights flickered. A low hum began to resonate through the room, growing louder with each passing second. The team froze, their weapons drawn, as a voice, deep, mechanical, and ancient, boomed through the chamber. "Identity information required." The words reverberated like thunder, and a holographic interface appeared in midair. It displayed symbols and prompts in an archaic human script. Liam scrambled to decipher it, sweat beading on his brow. "It's asking for authorization," he said. "But these codes, they're centuries old. I don't even know if—" Before he could finish, a small, trembling hand touched the console. The team turned to see the rescued child, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She had been silent since her ordeal, but now she seemed different, calm, almost otherworldly. "Access granted," the voice declared. The room erupted into motion. Lights blazed to life, illuminating the full scale of the chamber. The juggernauts began to stir, their limbs creaking and groaning as centuries of stillness came to an end. One by one, their eyes lit up, blazing with a fiery red glow that filled the room with an intense heat. The team stepped back, awestruck and terrified. The ground trembled as the juggernauts took their first steps, their movements heavy and deliberate. Their systems hummed with power, their weapons primed and ready. "Captain," Liam said, his voice trembling, "these things aren't just war machines. They're alive." Arya didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the closest juggernaut as it turned to face her. Its gaze was unyielding, its presence overwhelming. Then, in a voice that shook the very air, it spoke. "Command, accepted. Designation. Humanity's guardians. Directive. Eliminate all three aces." The child stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the towering machines. Her voice, steady and unafraid, echoed through the chamber. "They've been waiting," she said, her tone hauntingly calm. "Waiting for us to call them." Arya felt a chill run down her spine. The juggernauts were awake, and there was no turning back. The mission begins. The juggernauts stood as silent sentinels, their massive frames bristling with untapped power. Captain Arya Kane watched them with a mix of awe and dread. They were far beyond anything humanity had built in recent history. Machines forged in a time of desperation and unimaginable ambition. Now, they were humanity's last hope. "Prepare the juggernauts for deployment," Arya ordered, her voice steady despite the unease she felt. The team scrambled to execute her commands, their footsteps echoing through the vast chamber. Liam, the young engineer, worked furiously to stabilize the systems. He muttered to himself as he calibrated the ancient controls. "These things are more than machines," he said under his breath, his voice trembling with both excitement and fear. "They're practically alive, and they're waiting for something, or someone." Arya's gaze shifted to the child. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her glowing eyes fixed on the nearest juggernaut. There was an unnatural calm about her, as if she belonged here more than anyone else. The other soldiers avoided her, unsure of what to make of the girl who had unlocked these ancient weapons with a mere touch. "Why did they respond to you?" Arya asked, kneeling beside her. "What are you not telling us?" The child tilted her head, her voice soft but certain. "I don't know why, but I can feel them. They're angry. They've been asleep for so long, but now they're ready to fight." Before Arya could press further, alarms blared throughout the vault. A holographic interface appeared in midair, displaying a series of red warnings. "Incoming Zilnari fleet detected," the mechanical voice of the juggernauts announced. "Hostile forces closing in. Estimated time to engagement, 3 hours." The team froze. The Zilnari had discovered their location faster than anyone expected. Arya clenched her fists. "They won't give us time to prepare." "Liam, are the juggernauts operational?" "Mostly," Liam replied, his hands flying over the controls. "Their core systems are active, but some subsystems are still coming online. They're not at full strength." "They'll have to be enough," Arya said. She turned to the soldiers. "We hold the line here. No one gets through." The ground trembled as the juggernauts began to move. Their massive limbs groaned, and the air filled with the hum of energy as their weapon systems powered up. One juggernaut, larger than the rest, stepped forward. Its chest plate bore the faded insignia of an ancient human fleet. Its voice rumbled like thunder. "Designation, Equilepisi. Kirai Menera. DDIRDC Taagi. Protect humanity. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, but Aria's voice cut through the tension. Eclipse, can you engage the enemy? The Juggernaut turned its glowing eyes to her. All hostilities will be eliminated. As the team prepared for battle, the Tsilnari fleet descended through the planet's atmosphere. Their ships, sleek and predatory, cast ominous shadows over the barren terrain. From the lead ship, the Tsilnari commander, Kavol, watched with a smirk. Humans and their relics, Kavol sneered. They think they can oppose us with machines from a forgotten age. Destroy them all. The Tsilnari launched their assault, their weapons carving through the air in streaks of green energy. The Juggernauts responded with terrifying precision. Eclipse raised its arm, and a massive cannon emerged from its forearm. A single shot erupted, tearing through the lead Tsilnari ship in a blinding explosion. The battlefield erupted into chaos. The Juggernauts moved with a grace that belied their size, their weapons tearing through enemy forces with ruthless efficiency. Eclipse led the charge, its massive frame absorbing enemy fire as it cleared a path through the Tsilnari ranks. The other Juggernauts followed, each one a titan of destruction. Inside the vault, Liam monitored the battle through the holographic interface. His hand shook as he relayed data to Aria. "They're winning," he said, disbelief coloring his voice. "The Juggernauts are actually holding them back." But Aria's attention was elsewhere. The child had risen to her feet, her glowing eyes brighter than before. She walked toward the controls, her movements purposeful. "They need help," she said simply. "What do you mean?" Aria asked, stepping toward her. The child placed her hand on the console, and the vault trembled. Ancient systems came to life, revealing a hidden chamber beneath the floor. Inside were smaller constructs, drones, and automated turrets, designed to support the Juggernauts in battle. They activated at her command, rising from the depths to join the fray. The Tsilnari forces faltered as the tide turned against them. Their sleek ships were no match for the raw power of the Juggernauts and their new reinforcements. Kavol watched in shock as his fleet was decimated. "What are those machines?" he roared. "How are the humans doing this?" As the last Tsilnari ship retreated, Eclipse stood amidst the wreckage, its armor scorched but intact. The battlefield was silent except for the hum of the Juggernauts' power cores. Inside the vault, the child turned to Aria. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice quiet but filled with certainty. "They're coming for all of us now." Aria's jaw tightened. She knew that Tsilnari wouldn't stop after this defeat. Humanity had revealed its hidden power, and the galaxy would take notice. The real war was just beginning. The Tsilnari's response. Kavol stormed into the war chamber of the Tsilnari flagship, his rage barely contained. Around the circular table, his sub-commanders stared at the holographic replay of the battle, their expressions oscillating between disbelief and fear. The Juggernauts had annihilated an entire assault fleet with minimal effort. The ancient human machines were unlike anything that Tsilnari had ever faced. "This is unacceptable," Kavol roared, slamming his clawed fist on the table. "How did these primitives unlock such power? Who allowed this to happen?" One of his subordinates, a nervous lieutenant, spoke hesitantly. "Commander, these machines, they are not modern constructs. The humans must have unearthed them from their forgotten past. Their technology predates even our oldest archives." Kavol's eyes narrowed, his slit pupils glowing with menace, and yet they wielded with precision. "No more excuses. Prepare the Obliterator-class ships. If these humans think their relics can protect them, we'll show them what true power looks like." As the Tsilnari fleet began regrouping, their scientists analyzed the Juggernauts' capabilities. They identified weaknesses in their energy shielding and movement patterns, devising a plan to exploit them. Meanwhile, Cavol dispatched spies to infiltrate human territories, determined to uncover the source of this newfound threat. On the human side, the victory on the barren planet had ignited a spark of hope, but it was short-lived. Captain Aria Kane and her team returned to their command ship, weary and haunted by what they had witnessed. The Juggernauts had been devastatingly effective, but their sheer power raised troubling questions. In a high-level briefing, Aria addressed the Human Defense Council. Holographic displays showed the destruction wrought by the Juggernauts. Cities and forests on the battlefield planet had been obliterated as collateral damage, leaving scars visible from orbit. "These machines don't discriminate," Aria said, her voice heavy. "They destroy everything in their path, friend or foe. We've unleashed a force we can't fully control." Councillor Bren, a staunch advocate for war, leaned forward. "And yet, they saved us. Without them, the Zilnari would have wiped out our resistance. This is war, Captain. Sacrifices must be made." Aria's jaw tightened. "We're not just fighting the Zilnari. We're fighting to protect what makes us human. If we lose sight of that, we've already lost." The council erupted into debate, but Aria's words lingered in the air. Humanity was walking a razor's edge, and the Juggernauts were both their greatest weapon and their greatest threat. Meanwhile, Liam continued his work in Vault Primus, attempting to unravel the mysteries of the Juggernauts. The child, who had become an enigma to the entire team, sat nearby, her glowing eyes scanning the ancient symbols on the walls. "Do you understand any of this?" Liam asked, his voice cautious. "These markings, these systems, they're so advanced, yet so familiar. It's like they're from a version of humanity we've forgotten." The child nodded slowly. "It's not just humanity that forgot. The machines forgot too, but they're remembering now." Liam froze, her words sending a chill down his spine. "Remembering what?" The child didn't answer, but her gaze lingered on a symbol etched into the console, a circle surrounded by stars, with a single line cutting through it. It seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. Elsewhere, the Zilnari spies infiltrated a remote human colony on the edge of known space. Disguised as traders, they planted listening devices and observed the humans closely. One spy, Savaki, was particularly fascinated by the humans' resilience. Despite their fear of the Zilnari, they continued to rebuild, to adapt, and to fight. "What drives them?" Savaki whispered to herself as she watched a group of children playing in the streets, their laughter defying the looming threat of annihilation. Her comrade sneered. "Foolish optimism. It will be their downfall." But Savaki wasn't so sure. The humans' ingenuity and determination were unlike anything she had seen in her time serving the Dominion. For the first time, doubt crept into her mind. Were the Zilnari truly superior, or had they underestimated their prey? The Zilnari fleet launched its counterattack 2 weeks later, this time deploying their most advanced weapons. Their Obliterator-class ships were designed to tear through planetary defenses with overwhelming firepower. As they descended on the human colony of Haven's Reach, panic spread through the civilian population. Captain Aria and her team arrived just as the attack began. The Juggernauts were deployed, their massive forms dropping from orbit like falling meteors. The impact of their landing shook the ground, and their eyes blazed as they prepared for battle. The Zilnari forces unleashed a barrage of firepower, targeting the Juggernauts' identified weak points. The ancient machines faltered, their shields flickering under the sustained assault. For the first time, it seemed that Zilnari had the upper hand. But then, something unexpected happened. The child stepped forward, her glowing eyes brighter than ever. She raised her hands, and the Juggernauts responded, their movements growing faster and more precise. It was as if she was guiding them, connecting with them on a level no one could comprehend. "What is she doing?" Liam shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "She's becoming one with them," Aria said, her tone filled with both awe and fear. The Juggernauts pushed back against the Zilnari, their weapons tearing through the enemy fleet. Eclipse, the largest of the machines, unleashed a devastating beam of energy that split the lead obliterator ship in two. The tide of the battle turned once again, but the cost was clear. As the Tsilnari retreated, Aria watched the child with unease. "What are you?" she whispered. The child turned to her, her expression calm but haunting. "I'm what they made me to be. And this is only the beginning." The betrayal. The Tsilnari defeat at Haven's Reach sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Their once invincible fleet had been decimated, and the rumors of humanity's terrifying juggernauts spread like wildfire. For the first time in centuries, humanity was not seen as weak, but as a rising power capable of striking fear into the galaxy. Yet, within the shadows of this victory, cracks began to form. Deep within Vault Primus, Liam worked tirelessly to uncover the secrets of the Juggernauts. Their power was undeniable, but their origins remained shrouded in mystery. The child had become a key figure in this effort, her connection to the machines growing stronger with each passing day. She seemed to instinctively know how to guide them, how to awaken systems even Liam's expertise couldn't decipher. As Liam sifted through ancient files, he stumbled upon a fragment of data hidden deep within the Juggernauts' core systems. The words were garbled but ominous. "Directive override. Initiate ascension protocol." "What's this?" Liam muttered, his heart racing. He tried to access more of the file, but the system locked him out, a warning flashing across the screen. Unauthorized access detected. Before he could investigate further, the alarms in the vault blared. Aria and her team rushed in, weapons drawn. "What's going on?" Aria demanded. "Breach detected in vault security," one of the soldiers reported. "We've been compromised." Far above, a Tsilnari infiltration team had slipped through humanity's defenses. Disguised as traitors, they had planted a virus into the communication networks, gaining access to Vault Primus. The infiltration was led by Savaki, the Tsilnari spy who had begun to question the Dominion's motives. She was torn between her duty and the growing realization that humanity's fight was more than just a struggle for survival. It was a battle for their very existence. Using the virus, the Tsilnari attempted to disable the Juggernauts remotely. In the middle of a critical operation to relocate the machines, Eclipse suddenly froze, its massive frame going dark. The other Juggernauts followed, their lights flickering as the virus spread through their systems. "They're shutting down," Liam shouted, frantically typing at his console. "Something's overriding their commands." Aria's face was grim. "Can you stop it?" "I'm trying," Liam snapped, his hands trembling. "But this isn't just a hack. It's like the Juggernauts are fighting against themselves." The child stepped forward, her glowing eyes narrowing as she placed her hands on the control panel. The room pulsed with an eerie light as she interfaced directly with the machines. "They're not fighting," she said in a calm, unnerving tone. "They're confused." The lights in the vault dimmed as the child concentrated, her small body trembling under the strain. Slowly, the Juggernauts began to reactivate, their systems purging the virus. Eclipse's eyes lit up once more, and its deep voice echoed through the chamber. "Security dettetted. Counter-MEAs URES. In orbit, the Tsilnari fleet prepared for another assault. Savaki stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching as the Dominion's leaders argued about their next move. She felt a pang of doubt as she listened to Kavol's orders. "Target the human colonies," Kavol growled. "If they will not surrender their weapons, we will burn their worlds to ash." Savaki hesitated. "Commander, is it wise to provoke them further? These machines, they're unlike anything we've faced before." Kavol's eyes burned with fury. "Are you questioning me?" Savaki lowered her gaze. "No, Commander. I will do as ordered." But deep inside, she knew her loyalty was wavering. The humans were not the mindless aggressors the Dominion had painted them to be. They were fighting for their survival, for their future. On the surface, Aria and her team prepared for the inevitable Tsilnari retaliation. The Juggernauts were back online, but the virus had left lingering effects. Their movements were slower, their systems less responsive. Liam worked around the clock to repair the damage, but time was running out. As tensions mounted, Aria received a troubling report. One of her own had been compromised. A human operative working closely with the Silnari had sabotaged critical infrastructure, leaving their colony vulnerable to attack. The betrayal shook the team, casting a shadow of doubt over everyone's loyalty. Who could do this? One soldier muttered. After everything we fought for. Aria's voice was cold. Someone who doesn't believe in what we're fighting for. The betrayal was a harsh reminder that not all humans shared the same vision for their future. Some saw the Juggernauts as a threat, not just to their enemies, but to humanity itself. The Silnari attack came swift and brutal. Their ships descended on Haven's Reach with overwhelming force, targeting civilian areas in a show of merciless dominance. The Juggernauts fought valiantly, but their weakened systems struggled to keep up. Aria led the defense, coordinating strikes from the ground while Eclipse and the others held the line. Amid the chaos, Sci-Fi made her move. Disguised among the human forces, she sabotaged a key power relay, causing a chain reaction that disabled one of the Juggernauts mid-battle. But as she watched the devastation unfold, guilt consumed her. The humans were fighting with everything they had, risking their lives to protect innocent civilians. The Silnari, on the other hand, showed no mercy. Sci-Fi turned to leave, but the child's voice stopped her in her tracks. "You don't have to do this." The spy turned to see the glowing-eyed girl standing before her, unafraid. "What do you know about what I have to do?" Sci-Fi hissed. "I know you're afraid," the child said. "But not of us. You're afraid of what will happen if you let yourself believe we're not the monsters your leaders say we are." Sci-Fi hesitated, her claws trembling. For the first time, she saw the humans not as enemies, but as people. People fighting for their survival against impossible odds. I can't," she whispered, before fleeing into the chaos. The battle ended in a fragile victory for humanity. The Silnari retreated, but the cost had been great. One Juggernaut was lost, and the colony lay in ruins. Aria stood among the wreckage, her resolve hardening. "This isn't just a war of weapons," she said, her voice filled with determination. "It's a war of loyalty, of belief. If we're going to survive, we need to fight not just for our lives, but for our humanity." In the distance, Eclipse stood like a battered guardian, its eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. The battle was far from over, and the real fight was just beginning. The final stand. The aftermath of Haven's Reach hung heavy in the air. The human colony was a wasteland of scorched ground and crumbled buildings. Survivors huddled in makeshift shelters, their eyes hollow but filled with a flicker of defiance. Humanity had survived the Silnari's latest assault, but the cost had been devastating. Captain Aria Kane stood atop the rubble, gazing at the smoldering horizon. The time for hesitation was over. Far above, the Silnari fleet regrouped. Their losses were mounting, but Vol's resolve was unshaken. Inside the command center of his flagship, the Silnari leader paced, his claws clinking against the polished floor. "This ends now," Vol growled, his voice like gravel. "The humans think they can defy us with their ancient toys. Let's show them what the Dominion is truly capable of." The Silnari prepared their ultimate weapon, the Eclipse Breaker, a ship-sized cannon capable of obliterating entire planets in a single shot. It had only been used once in their history, its mere mention enough to bring systems to their knees. This time, it was aimed directly at Earth. In Vol Primus, tension crackled like static electricity. Liam worked tirelessly to bring the remaining Juggernauts back to full functionality, but their systems were still unstable. The sabotage had left deep scars, and time was running out. Aria and the child stood nearby, their eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the advancing Silnari fleet. "They're bringing something big," Liam said, his voice tight. "I'm picking up massive energy signatures. Whatever it is, it's not just a fleet. It's a planet killer. Aria's jaw tightened. Earth's defenses won't hold against something like that. The child stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. The Juggernauts can stop it. Liam looked at her, incredulous. You're talking about machines that are barely holding together. They can't even function at full capacity. They don't have to, the child replied, her glowing eyes fixed on the display. They just need a purpose. On board the Zilnari flagship, Savaki found herself at a crossroads. Her doubts about the Dominion's actions had grown into a storm she could no longer ignore. Watching the preparations for the eclipse breaker filled her with dread. The annihilation of an entire planet, millions of innocent lives, was not victory, it was genocide. As the Zilnari fleet began its final approach toward Earth, Savaki made a decision that would change the course of history. She slipped away from the command deck, using her clearance to access a secure communication terminal. With trembling hands, she sent an encrypted message to the humans, detailing the location and vulnerabilities of the eclipse breaker. The message reached Aria just as Liam managed to stabilize Eclipse, the largest and most advanced of the Juggernauts. The team gathered around the console, reading the transmission in stunned silence. An insider, Liam asked, his brow furrowed. Why would a Zilnari help us? Aria shook her head. It doesn't matter why. What matters is we have a shot. The plan was audacious and desperate. The Juggernauts would launch an all-out assault on the eclipse breaker, using their combined firepower to destroy the cannon before it could fire. But the cost would be high. The Zilnari fleet vastly outnumbered humanity's forces, and even the Juggernauts might not be enough. We have no choice, Aria said, her voice steely. This is what they were built for. If we fail, Earth is finished. The child stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the massive constructs surrounding her. They'll listen to me, she said, placing her hands on Eclipse's control panel. The Juggernaut's eyes glowed brighter, and its voice rumbled through the chamber. Direct-IV, ACK-NODODLEGG. All SOASTM is optimized for final engagement. The battle began as the Zilnari fleet descended upon Earth's outer defenses. The Juggernauts launched from Vault Primus, their massive forms cutting through the void like celestial titans. Eclipse led the charge, its energy cannons blazing as it tore through the Zilnari blockade. Kavul watched from the command deck, his expression a mixture of anger and unease. The human's resilience was becoming a threat he could no longer dismiss. Bring the eclipse breaker online, he ordered. End this. The massive cannon began to power up, its core glowing with an intensity that rivaled a star. The Juggernauts focused their assault on the eclipse breaker, but the Zilnari fleet threw everything they had into its defense. Ships collided, weapons fired in blinding bursts, and the void of space became a chaotic inferno. Inside Eclipse, the child's connection to the Juggernaut deepened. She could feel its power, its pain, and its purpose. They were made to protect us, she whispered, her voice distant. But they were also made to sacrifice. What does that mean? Liam shouted over the chaos. The child didn't answer. Instead, she directed Eclipse to charge straight at the eclipse breaker. The other Juggernauts followed, their weapons carving a path through the Zilnari fleet. Savaki, still aboard the Zilnari flagship, took her final stand. She sabotaged the fleet's communications, creating chaos among their ranks. Her betrayal was discovered too late, and as the flagship's security forces closed in, she sent one last transmission to the humans. Do not give up, she said, her voice calm despite the danger. You are stronger than they know. The climax of the battle came as Eclipse reached the eclipse breaker. The massive Juggernaut unleashed its full arsenal, striking the cannon's core with pinpoint precision. The resulting explosion lit up the darkness of space, a brilliant cascade of destruction that consumed both Eclipse and the eclipse breaker. As the dust settled, the remaining Juggernauts stood as silent witnesses to the carnage. The Zilnari fleet, now leaderless and crippled, began a hasty retreat. Humanity had won, but at a staggering cost. Back on Earth, Aria and her team watched the retreating fleet from a command post. The child, weakened but alive, looked up at the night sky, her glowing eyes dimming. "They knew what they had to do," she said quietly. "Eclipse was never meant to survive. It was meant to save." Aria placed a hand on the child's shoulder. "And it did. You did." The battle was over, but the war had only begun. Humanity had proven they were not to be underestimated, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The reckoning. The battlefield was silent. The debris of the Eclipse breaker and the fallen Juggernaut. Eclipse floated lifelessly in space. Humanity's victory was undeniable, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. Captain Aria Kane stood in the command center of Earth's orbital station, staring at the smoldering wreckage visible through the observation window. The battle had been won, but the war had left scars that could not be ignored. On the Tsilnari homeworld, the Dominion faced its own reckoning. The High Command was in disarray, and Kovol's failure had left a power vacuum. The surviving Tsilnari fleets limped back to their systems, their commanders too shaken to regroup. For the first time in centuries, the Tsilnari Dominion faced fear, not of their enemies, but of the humans who had defied them. Savaki, now a fugitive, found herself on the run within her own territory. Her betrayal had exposed the Dominion's weaknesses, and she was hunted as a traitor. Yet she held no regret. The humans had shown her something the Dominion had lost long ago: the will to fight not for power, but for survival and dignity. Back on Earth, the Human Defense Council convened to address the aftermath of the war. The room was filled with tension as leaders debated the next steps. Some called for a full-scale counterattack to cripple the Tsilnari once and for all, while others urged caution, fearing the wrath of the Dominion's remaining forces. Aria spoke, her voice cutting through the noise. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity cannot be erased. But if we become conquerors, we'll lose what makes us human. The Juggernauts weren't just weapons. They were a reminder of who we were and who we can be. Let's not forget that." The council fell silent. Her words resonated, but they also highlighted the weight of their next decision. Humanity had the chance to reshape its role in the galaxy, but it also carried the risk of repeating history. The child, now a symbol of hope and mystery, became a subject of intense study. Scientists and historians sought to understand her connection to the Juggernauts and the ancient human civilizations that had built them. She spoke little, but her presence seemed to calm even the most heated debates. One night, as she stood on a balcony overlooking Earth's recovering cities, Aria approached her. "Do you ever feel afraid?" Aria asked. The child looked up, her glowing eyes softer than before. "Fear is part of being human, but so is hope." Aria nodded, the weight of the war still heavy on her shoulders. "What happens now?" The child turned to her, her gaze steady. "The Juggernauts were only the beginning. There's more out there, more than even the Tsilnari understand. Humanity has a role to play, but the galaxy isn't ready to accept it yet." As Earth rebuilt, messages began to pour in from other alien species. Some offered tentative alliances, seeing humanity as a force that could challenge the Dominion's tyranny. Others warned of retaliation, urging humanity to remain in the shadows. The galaxy was at a crossroads, and humanity was now at its center. Meanwhile, Savaki made her way to a hidden outpost where exiles and dissenters from the Dominion gathered. She spoke of humanity's resilience and the Juggernauts, sharing what she had witnessed. Her words ignited a spark among those who had long questioned the Dominion's rule. Quietly, a movement began to form, a coalition of species tired of oppression, inspired by humanity's defiance. In Vault Primus, Liam uncovered more secrets buried in the Juggernauts' databanks. Among the fragments was a warning, encoded in ancient human language. "The Sentinels will awaken, but so too will the Architects. Prepare." "What does it mean?" he asked the child, who stood silently beside him. "It means this isn't over. she said, her voice distant. The Juggernauts weren't just built to fight the Xilnari. They were built for something much bigger. Liam's face paled. Something bigger than the Dominion. The child nodded. Something older. The final scene unfolded in the depths of space. Far beyond the known galaxy, a signal pulsed faintly, unnoticed by most. But deep within the remaining Juggernauts, it was felt. Their systems stirred, responding to a call they had long forgotten. On Earth, the child woke suddenly, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. She whispered two words that sent a chill down Aria's spine. "They're coming." The camera panned out, showing Earth's shining blue surface, the remnants of the Xilnari fleet drifting in orbit, and the galaxy beyond. A vast, dark expanse filled with mysteries yet to unfold. Humanity had survived its first reckoning, but the true test was only beginning. The galaxy watched, and something far older than the Xilnari stirred in the darkness. The Juggernauts had done their part, but now it was up to humanity to face the unknown future.